Professor Victor invited us to basically present on a project, a one-year pilot project that's running in Tower Hamlets that's looking to address loneliness in care homes through an intergenerational kind of process. I'm here, Adam's also here from the project we commissioned, Magic Me, and he'll be talking a bit about the actual delivery phase of the project, how they went about actually delivering it, and I'll talk a bit of the background around why we commissioned the project, why it seemed to matter, why we wanted to do something in this area. So, thank you. Okay, so a bit of background on sort of the influencing factors that kind of contributed towards the project being drawn up. So basically I've been working, I work within the public health team, and my role is in mental health and wellbeing, and with a particular focus around older people. And I was writing a fact sheet on loneliness, and the loneliness fact sheet, through the loneliness fact sheet I got to become familiar with the work of the Campaign to End Loneliness, who have influenced quite a lot of the kind of sort of current kind of interest on this very sort of old sort of, you know, long-term issue. And also with Professor Victor's research, through working on the fact sheet, what I found was people in Tower Hamlets particularly are potentially at higher risk of loneliness, owing to the fact that many of the independent factors associated with loneliness are very high in that borough. So for example, more people live alone, there's more people that are on low income, it's very deprived. And there's quite a mixed kind of population in terms of ethnicity. And so there was also, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Age UK also developed a model recently of subjective loneliness. They ranked Tower Hamlets as the loneliest borough. I think that was mainly due to the fact that their model was actually very highly weighted against self-reported illness, and there are very high rates of that in Tower Hamlets. Just to backtrack a bit, if you don't know anything about Tower Hamlets as a borough itself, it's a population of about 260,000 people. It's quite diverse and quite an unusual place in that it has some of the most sort of deprived wards in the country, alongside one of the wealthiest financial sectors in the country, which is Canary Wharf. So it's a very unusual kind of borough within which to work, very interesting borough within which to work. Also, other influencing factors was obviously around Professor Victor's research around the fact that there is very little research done in care homes. We understand very little about loneliness within the care home context in the UK. There's a lot of it knowledge about what happens in other countries. But we suspect there is higher rates of loneliness in care homes. And that, this was the basis of the project, really, was like, we believe that people in care homes are likely to be lonely. We should be doing something about this. We don't know what to do. So we just give a bit more background on the local population in Tower Hamlets. So we've got a very small number of older people in Tower Hamlets compared to other places in England. We're actually the smallest number of older people over the age of 65. There's less diversity in the over 65s than in the whole population. I've just given a couple of ethnic groups. I haven't put them all out here because there's, just to give a bit of an idea. And so as a result, there's obviously less care homes in the borough. There's only 6 care homes in the borough. The maximum capacity, I think it's like 336 people in total. There's also extra care housing schemes. If you're not familiar, they're kind of like sort of independent kind of flats, which was heavily supported by wardens. We have a few of those as well, not so many. So essentially, the project that we scoped out was looking at how to increase opportunities to get the wider community into the home. And the idea was that we wanted to match people in the community who are volunteers, who may be of a different generation, with residents in the care home. We wanted it to be more than just a kind of like tokenistic kind of like befriending scheme. We really wanted the match to be based on things that were of mutual interest. And actually this project was largely based on a model, I don't know if you've heard of it, Learning for the Fourth Age. If anyone's heard of Learning for the Fourth Age? Can you repeat the name, please? Learning for the Fourth Age. So it's up in Leicester and Leicestershire. It wouldn't necessarily be very commonly known of, but it's a brilliant project which kind of aims to bring learning opportunities to people older people, in care homes as well, mainly in care homes, with the understanding that actually, just because you reach a particular age doesn't mean you can't learn a new skill, doesn't mean you can't express that hobby you've always wanted to do, and it's kind of like building on the capacity of that age, being at that age, and we really wanted to kind of use that model, not necessarily around learning, because we didn't want to restrict it to that. We felt things could be of mutual interest that were of, it could be a topic or it could be anything really, as long as it was a meaningful match. And it took, we felt, a very special type of organisation to take this project forward that would really understand the importance of that, and that's why we commissioned Magic Me, but I'll get onto that in a bit. Sorry, coming this bit. So, in the beginning, when you're writing a specification, in the realities of working in a council, you literally have a few months to kind of pull something together, or a month or so to pull something together before the commissioning round comes in. So we had these great ideals about how we were going to evidence the impact, because we knew we only had money for a pilot project for 1 year, really wanted to show the impact of the project, if it was successful to then secure future funding. So being able to evidence it was actually really, really important. So we kind of felt that, I felt that there was these ways that we could possibly go about doing it. So we felt through the work, through learning for the fourth age, they sort of talked a lot about behavioural markers that were quite common of seeing people taking less medication, sleeping better, eating more food, interacting more with each other as a result of their project in the home. And I figured, well, could we develop some kind of way of through observation? Obviously, it's not evidence in a very real sense, but to give an indication that the project's having some kind of impact on behaviour. So that was one area we hoped the project would develop. Then the other measures that had to be collected were around sort of relevant to the project itself. So we needed, the people that were delivering the project needed to understand whether someone was mentally impaired, whether there was any mental impairment, whether there was what hobbies or interests they were into, to really understand how to connect with that person, or which volunteer to link them with. So there was certain things we needed to collect, as well as for our qualities monitoring, we were required to collect information around ethnicity, age, and so forth. We also wanted to collect measures around loneliness and well-being. Now, within the Public Health Department in Tower Hamlets, we've been told to include well-being measures within all of our projects, but we did recognise that this wouldn't be necessarily fitting to this particular project, but we put it in there as we want to really collect subjective experiences of loneliness and of well-being. And finally, the richness of the qualitative data we hope to collect from anyone involved in the project, whether it be the care home staff, to the volunteers, to the residents themselves, to really understand their experiences of being involved in it, and whether it actually made a difference or not. And we were interested to know if it did or it didn't make a difference. That was important. This was kind of used for the suppliers' kind of briefings. We had briefings for all the suppliers that come in to bid for the project, to kind of set out from inception through to completion what the kind of journey would be for the project, and how we envisaged what the data collection points would be along the way. And so, yeah, this was the kind of ideal kind of way the project would progress. And as you can see, chiefly among them, one of the intended outcomes was to reduce loneliness. And that is what I will leave on because and hand over to Adam, because this was the biggest challenge of the project, was how do we evidence the impact of loneliness given the population that we had in the care homes. And as you can see, it's a 1-year pilot. Well, identifying and establishing relationships with the care homes, that in itself is a huge undertaking, and we knew that we had to find a very special project that had very good relationships already with the care homes, but also understood how important relationships were and how important meaningful relationships were, and really understood that. And that's when we were really grateful to have Magic Me in the borough, who are an arts charity who specialise in intergenerational work. And Adam's here to speak for Magic Me and kind of present to you how the project unfolded from that point forward.
Hello everyone. Hi, I'm Adam Butler from Magic Me. I'm the volunteer manager. Yeah, as alluded to, my colleague Ellie, who may be on the programme, is sadly unable to make it today. But I've worked with Nicola and Ellie on the project throughout, so hopefully I'll be able to share some information and some background and the progress, what we've been doing. So, yeah, Magic Me's been running for 26 years, and we're the UK's leading provider of intergenerational arts projects. We're based in Bethnal Green, and we bring together younger and older people in our local community for mutual learning, enjoyment and benefit. Last year we served 534 people and involved 231 volunteers. So why are we doing this project? Too early. Due to our extensive work in care homes, we were all too aware of the loneliness that many of the people faced who we were working with. We'd regularly meet residents in care homes who didn't have any visitors from outside. For many older people, our Cocktails in Care Homes events, which is a monthly meeting of cocktails run by volunteers for the enjoyment of care home residents, were the highlight of their month. Regularly, we would get cocktails volunteers asking us if we could visit residents outside of the parties. We have found that many care homes do not have the capacity to manage volunteers, and until now, Magic Me haven't had the resources to facilitate this. So Magic Me applied to tender to Action on Loneliness due to our wealth of experience in working effectively alongside care home teams. Currently, we work with 9 care homes on the Cocktails in Care Homes project, bringing young adult volunteers into care homes in 5 London boroughs. This short film hopefully gives you a quick taster of Magic Me's work. If it works correctly.
There aren't many places in London for younger and older people
Volume
to
okay.
do things together. The city, with its ever-changing population, can be a difficult place to get to know your neighbours. In Tower Hamlets, nearly half of people over 60 live on their own. Older age can be very lonely. At Magic Me, we run arts projects that bridge the age gap, creating a place and an opportunity for young and older people to meet and get to know each other. Our intergenerational groups meet every week, working together on creative activities, from photography to drama, creative writing to dancing, cocktails to singing. Younger and older people learn skills, share ideas and come to appreciate one another's point of view. Supported by our team of professional artists, they create artworks, performances, exhibitions, enjoyed by a wide audience. We work with over 500 people each year, from primary school children to care home residents, secondary school students to active older people, and over 100 young volunteers. The arts is a great way to bring people together to build a stronger community.
What I like about what Magic Me does is that you never actually get kind of young people, teenagers and pensioners in the same room together.
I thought they were going to be weekend, but when I first learned they were so energetic.
It really does a lot for the well-being.
And what I suppose constantly surprises me is how the two groups tend to bring out the best in each other.
It's really lovely to come down to their level and to enjoy the things that they enjoy. And it makes you younger.
When they're doing things together, it helps that conversation to actually just flow a little bit better.
Some of them don't have family members, and with volunteers coming in, it's just highlights their week or month.
The children here are absolutely wonderful. They're a credit to work with. They make our fun.
Thank you. So hopefully that gives an idea of where we're coming from when we approach the project. So what have we done since then? So we set out to match 60 volunteers with 60 care home residents across 5 care homes and 1 residential extra care home facility in Tower Hamlets. And we estimated that in addition to this, a further 60 residents would benefit concurrently from conversations and activities run by volunteers in the communal areas. So we placed 10 young adult volunteers in each of the 6 care homes. Volunteers visit residents on a weekly basis, forming intergenerational befriending connections that are based on mutual interests and shared connections. In the first phase of care homes, we started in 3 care homes. We've placed a total of 28 volunteers currently, who are now regularly attending their sessions. Additional residents are also benefiting. For example, 1 volunteer comes to visit a resident who enjoys playing cards. Over a short period of time, they set up a small card playing group that meets regularly and brings together residents that hadn't had a chance to get to know each other previously. So, I'd just like to talk a little about how we and how the care homes identified the people that would benefit mostly from this project. Firstly, we found the care homes very enthusiastic to be part of this project. We had thought it might be hard initially to identify residents in the homes, but all the homes were very forthcoming in identifying residents. So to do this, we carried out questionnaires. So we asked questions around both self-completed questionnaires, so questionnaires that could be completed by the resident around their types of interactions they had had and the quality of interactions they had had with other people, particularly external people, so not care home residents or care home staff or healthcare professionals, but people that were coming in of a different age group and interacting with them. We also got the same or similar information from the care home staff. What we found was interesting was there wasn't always a correlation between the levels of social interaction and how lonely someone was. So, for instance, a care home activities coordinator told us on one questionnaire, she is always walking around the care home and looking for someone to talk to. She loves chatting. Mrs. Smith, name changed, is very sociable with staff, but I think sometimes she is really sad as we don't always have enough time to talk to her and other residents don't always talk back to her. So some of the referrals had actually had other external visitors, had even young people coming in, but were still identifying as lonely. So people manifest their loneliness in different ways, and of course many residents scored very low on social interactions and involvement in activities. There's not one way of defining someone as lonely, and it's often subjective. This is especially an issue when working with people with dementia who do not necessarily have the capacity to discuss this themselves. In most cases, care home staff and sometimes the families were filling out these questionnaires. So Magic Me is continuing to work and analyse and evaluate the project, and we've worked with My Home Life to look at the data collected and the best way of analysing it. Yeah, so My Home Life, they're based initially at City University, and they're set up to share good practice research throughout the care sector, particularly sharing it with care homes. So from the beginning, we aimed for an evidence-based approach to evaluating the project. And as this is a pilot project, we devised an evaluation framework to measure the impact of the activity on participants and volunteers. It is a challenging project to evaluate. There are measures that have been developed, as many of you will know, for loneliness, but this is a complex area where up to 80% of the people referred to the project were diagnosed with dementia or another form of cognitive impairment. So My Home Life agreed with the difficulty of using standardised measurement tools on those care home residents with dementia, not just in terms of initial loneliness measures, but also in terms of informed consent regarding research and evaluation projects. And as loneliness and well-being are subjective, the use of a proxy, as we have done with many referrals with the care home staff and with the family members, is not ideal. And it's not how many of the tools were originally developed to be used. So in conjunction with My Home Life, our questionnaires were designed to look at the wider issues and look not just around the experience of loneliness, but also the level of contact and social isolation in conjunction. So the care home staff observations actually were incredibly helpful part of deciding kind of which residents would benefit the most from the project. And in a large part that was based on the quality of the interactions that they were already having. So this is the framework that we developed. So every kind of objective that we set out, we devised the tools such as the care home staff questionnaires and the interviews and feedback from care staff, took into account the residents' care plans. And we built into that an ongoing process, so we come back to those as part of the evaluation throughout the project. Our volunteers' role in that is very important. So our volunteers complete weekly session logs. So every time they visit a resident, we've devised a framework that asks them to note down exactly what was successful in their interaction, exactly what they were concerned about or felt wasn't as successful. And we put those together as a weekly kind of snapshot of where this relationship is going and where this project is going as a whole. And then when we use that in conjunction with the other data that the project generates, we have a strong base of how we're impacting and which people we're impacting and which people we aren't impacting and why we're not doing that. So that's the framework there. In terms of where we are right now, so almost half of the residents that we've been referred do not have any visitors from anyone, from any friends or family, and have no contact with anyone beyond that community that I just referred to, so health professionals, care home staff and other residents. And care home staff do recognise this, and from the very first initial project meetings, care homes were incredibly enthusiastic about this project. One activities coordinator said to me, "We can get volunteers, we don't know how to keep them," which is quite an interesting observation of the need and the desire to get more communities involved in the care homes. So yeah, as you can see, we need volunteers really, we need external bodies. Ultimately, care homes and care home staff are structured in a way which cannot always encourage staff to sit down and spend real time with residents. So we hope to encourage community access to care homes and enable relationships to flourish between busy young professionals and the loneliest of care home residents. Thank you very much. If we have any questions.